Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming to our very special event tonight, the 16th annual reading for the Pennsylvania Public Poetry Project. My name is Ellysa Cahoy, and I am proud to serve as an assistant director of the Pennsylvania Center for the Book. Now, before we begin, I would like to thank the contributions of some very important people in this room. First of all, we'd like to thank our Dean, Barbara Dewey, for sponsoring the Pennsylvania Center for the Book. And we would also like to thank her for her continued support of this event. And now I'm going to ask you, because it was really important to applaud for our dean, now I'm going to ask you to hold your applause for everybody else. So you got the applause, Barbara. Thank you to our Associate Dean, Ann Langley. And also thank you to our Public Poetry Advisory Board members. If you could all stand briefly, they are Julia Kasdorf, Christopher Walker, Stephen Herb, and James O'Sullivan, who is in Ireland, I believe, for their guidance and support. We want to say thank you to the English department for their sponsorship of this event. Thank you to Wilson Hutton right here in the front row for design assistance, including his incredible work on all the beautiful posters that you will see here tonight. We want to say thank you to Mara Katria and Jeff Ungar, who are in the back of the room, recording this event for us right now and for posterity. Thank you to our intern, Kaylee Barber, for helping promote the event and helping us with the book sale. Thank you as well to Bill Keister from Barnes & Noble for his participation in our book sale. Big thank you to the faculty and staff of the Pennsylvania Center for the Book, including the woman who makes it all happen, our outreach coordinator, Caroline Wermuth. We want to thank our editor, right there, of the Pennsylvania Literary and Cultural Heritage Map, Nicole Miyashiro. And we want to thank our director, Stephen Herb, right here in the front row. Thank you to our 2016 Public Poetry Project Selection Committee. Tamika Cage Conley, can I ask you guys to stand too? Tamika Cage Conley, one of our recognized poets from last year. She's a Pittsburgh-based poet and writer. Paul Siegel, poet, writer, editor for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Daily News, and Philly.com. And are you still senior editor for Painted Bride Quarterly? All right, we got it. Thank you to, she's not here, Jacqueline Oshiro, poet and distinguished professor of English at the University of Utah. And now, join me in applauding for each and every one of these people. Thank you so much. The Pennsylvania Public Poetry Project focuses on poets with a connection to Pennsylvania and displays the poetry in public places to make poetry a part of the daily lives of a greater number of people. Since our project began in the year 2000, 73 individual poems have been printed and placed in public places throughout Pennsylvania. And tonight, we will showcase four poets and their poems, selected by our judges for this honor. And so, let's get on with the show. And with that, I'd like to say thank you again to each of you for coming out to this important celebration. And I'd like to now introduce Stephen Herb, the director of the Pennsylvania Center for the Book.
I've always been an advocate of the saying, never let the facts stand in the way of the story. I am obviously not a journalist, but I didn't know this man when he still went by the name Perchik and was married to Tevye's daughter, Hodel. When he first arrived from Siberia, he did get out. He decided to study acting at Carnegie Tech in Pittsburgh, now totally Americanized. I first met Wilson Hutton within days of my starting to work in the Penn State University libraries. In 1992, he had an office next to Tolkien scholar and Associate Dean Gloriana St. Clair's on the 5th floor of East Petit Library before the Paterno construction began. Will seemed to be Associate Dean St. Clair's right-hand man, but what exactly did he do? Anything and everything. As time passed, I realized that in certain other establishments, Will would have been considered Gloriana's consigliere. People never disappeared, but he was a problem solver, and no problem was too big to tackle. He was the one to talk to when issues arose, and he was always gracious with setting his skills to the task. Never an egotist or an egoist. He has supported the University Library's mission with class and a day-to-day can-do attitude. And by night, he was one of Center County's most extraordinary actors. Always creative, the administration eventually recognized Will's extraordinary design and photography skills as well, in addition to his ability to create within deadlines, a skill not always possessed in full measure by artistic folk. When Will became visual communications specialist within the newly created Public Relations and Marketing Department, we all learned how powerful those skills had become. For the Pennsylvania Center for the Book alone, Will Hutton has designed the following over the last 16 years. The Pennsylvania Center for the Book logo, an initial website, 13 years of Baker's Dozen family literacy bookmarks that have reached about 200,000 parents, libraries, and family literacy centers across the nation, approximately 100 event posters worthy of museum display or a top advertising firm, several dozen commemoratives, placards, flyers, bookmarks, and 50 of the 73 public poetry posters that have hung in libraries, bookstores, coffee shops, schools, universities, and offices all over the Commonwealth. And thanks to the National Book Festival every fall, they hang all over the United States. I have spotted those posters hanging in the men's room of one of Pennsylvania's smallest public libraries. And yes, it was above the urinal. And I was very proud to have it there. And I was just thinking, you know, it's good I never put my name on these because... And I've seen them hanging at the Library of Congress. I mean, that's pretty impressive. When we first got started, I thought, can this really happen? Is this really possible? I mean, in the second or third year, we had a poem about the metaphysics of an archer. We had Falling in Love with Your Father, the importance of poetry both in and out of prison, and we had Reflecting on Life from atop a three-wheeled bicycle, three-gear bicycle, two-wheel bicycle. And I just thought, how can this be? And he did it. Every year, he comes up with something to hang them together and still give them the individual treatment that a poem deserves. And remember, this is just one outreach effort of one of Penn State's university libraries, the Education and Behavioral Sciences Library. Will Hutton is an intense man, always on task, thinking, wondering, experimenting. He is a consummate professional, and his body of work is outstanding. We like to think of him as a man most days, but occasionally we ask for the impossible, and he delivers. My favorite Will Hutton role, God. As cartoonist Linda Berry once said in a similar context, Will is the total God of us. Thanks to Will, our awards, best lists, and programs have a life well beyond Penn State's borders, and this is especially important to the Pennsylvania Center for the Book because of our affiliation with our nation's most prestigious library, the Library of Congress. Thanks, Will. You will be on our artistic debt, always. I'd like to have Betsy Hutton stand. Will Hutton stand. Thanks to Betsy for the photos and Will for everything. Since I had to marry Hoddle, I thought I should make amends there. He left Hoddle for Betsy soon after he got here. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, William Brockman, the Paterno Family Librarian for Literature. Bill is so important to all this process for a lot of reasons, one of which is that he has funded it for 16 years. He's been on the advisory committee. He's done every one of these, except one year he was on a sabbatical and I filled in. But this year, I think he likes it so much, he asked if we would move it back a month so he could still be here. So just fresh from his tour of Zurich and the Joyce Center there, it is my pleasure to introduce Bill Brockman.
Thanks, Stephen. And thank you, Will. And thanks especially to Nicole Miyashiro for providing me with biographical information about our readers that I can incorporate into my introductions. That's very special. In talking to our poets tonight, earlier, the thing that struck me most clearly was the factor of networking that takes place within the Commonwealth. Stephen mentioned Painted Bride Quarterly. We have editors here, we have poets, and the editors publish the poets, collect the poets. Within the Public Poetry Project here, typically our readers become judges in following years after they read. We're part of a network of readings throughout the Commonwealth. And of course, we have posters that are distributed throughout the Commonwealth. So there's this rich network of people doing poetry, and I'm proud that we're part of this. So our first featured poet tonight is Peter Oresick. Born in Ford City, Pennsylvania, attended the University of Pittsburgh, and as he said in an interview, supported himself by working at Pittsburgh Plate Glass. True? True. No doubt some of this filtered into his first book entitled The Story of Glass, published in 1977 by West End Press. Peter Oresick was a high school English teacher, worked at the University of Pittsburgh Press and other publishing companies. He was on the faculty at Chatham University from 2005 to 2012. He's published a number of books of poetry and edited a number of books. Books of poetry include not only The Story of Glass, but Other Lives in 1985, and American Peace in 1985 also, Definitions in 1990, the intriguingly titled Warholorama in 2008, To a Museum Guard at Shift Change in 2012, and the new Iconoscope New and Selected Poems 2015, which is on sale here, and I'll buy a copy. With others, he's edited Working Classics, Poems on Industrial Life, 1990, the Pittsburgh Book of Contemporary American Poetry, 1993, For a Living, The Poetry of Work, 1995, and the forthcoming The Pittsburgh Novel, A Reader's Guide to Western Pennsylvania and Fiction, 1792 to 2014. Peter Oresick can't make it tonight. Reading for him will be his son, Jake Oresick. Let's greet Jake Oresick.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here. I'm honored to be able to read in place of my father, and I'm glad to be back on a college campus. I recognize what appear to be many undergrads in the room who are probably not at all getting any kind of credit for this, and just found out I was coming, so I appreciate that. The first poem I'm going to read is the poem that's on poster, Autumn Evening at the Window with Brushes. And my father's been a writer for his whole life, and a few years ago I came home and there are these amazing icon religious style paintings everywhere, but instead of saints there might be Walt Whitman or Bill Murray or Roberto Clemente. And so it turns out he became a fantastic painter in his spare time and in his retirement, and this is a poem about it. Autumn Evening at the Window with Brushes. Crimson clouds, a low-angled sun, redness deepening. It's an art to see shapes in clouds or spot a silhouette. At the end of a painting lesson, I am contented by the gurgle of faucet and soap. I love working with brush bellies, with thumb and forefinger, rinsing, scraping the virile with my nails, swabbing blotter cloth till no more pigment dislodges, or I repeat the massage. Sable martins boast a belly that wicks, reservoirs the paint, allows a painter to increase pressure and broaden a line so the pigment flows slowly, evenly, composing sleek curves. Clouds drift, unravel. I dress a clean brush to original form, tip needling to a point. Finest sable is Kolinsky of northern Siberia, where cruel climate breeds hair that's robust yet supple. springy, absorbent. Kolinsky sells at a price of gold factored thrice. As old Soviets said, the cheap brushes a false economy. I favor nickel-plated ferrules, corrosion resistant. I like bristles to taper an edge. I like best the sign liner for gypsy teardrop strokes. My feathery brush down, followed by pressure, drag, lifting quickly, a thin, thorn-like finish, my signature. I rotate the brush 90 degrees and repeat without reloading the Kolinsky. It's a tool I work methodically, yet without method, seemingly, and Mars red unbinds like a spirit emulsified. Red runs the slop sink in rivulets, ruby hues spotting, sticking to the stainless steel, hunching blobs like big-headed embryos with bantam hands and warm hearts and naive metaphysics dash by force of water until they sail alone without left or right brain or even a single bridging thought. Color drains and cycles into endless forms. Sable brushes stand on handles, not on their heads. They dry naturally in a jar on a windowsill, giving best results when cared for properly and last a lifetime. The other poems I'm going to read are more biographical for my father. As the introduction mentioned, he grew up in a small industrial mill town in the Allegheny Valley near Pittsburgh, and most people worked in the glass mill, and it was very ethnic, very religious, and these poems kind of paint that picture. This one's called Old Shevchenko. I recall him plainly in his black wool suit and his yellow shirt buttoned at the collar. After evening bells, he'd stroll until dark, and at corners he'd quote from the gospel. A mumble on the breeze, an angel in black, drawing laughs from passers-by. I saw him once encircled by Los Barbados, 7 bearded men on motorcycles. He glared at their skull and bone insignias. Pocketing his bifocals, he unbuttoned his shirt and doffed his black fedora. From his neck, he lifted a block of painted wood, the icon of the Black Madonna. It dangled from a bootlace. Then he shook it at them and passed from their midst unharmed. This was in the 60s, when I was a boy and given to searching for signs. I looked to the sky, to crumbling gray clouds, where the blue appeared like a beautiful blue eye. I sat and looked around me and listened. The leaves overhead scarcely rustled. By their delicate noise, I have trusted my life. The song is kind of generational. It's appropriate tonight. My grandmother and mother are here tonight since my father can't be. And I may be in this poem, I'm not sure. It's called At a Jewish Cemetery in Pittsburgh. Someone is looking for us. I sensed it earlier at the creek while floating on my back and again on Route 8 near Brookline. So we've detoured to this hillside, eroding and crazy with markers. We're looking for row MM or NN or something like that. I lug the baby. My wife runs ahead. This neighborhood knows her. She passes so easily between stones. She finds the grave, her father, dead 10 years now. In the time it takes to say Kaddish, the sun's dropped. I set my son down, and he crawls in the dimness, pulling himself up on the headstone. How delicately he fingers the marble. Quickly he rounds its corner, vanishes. I'm thinking. Grass, stone, quiet, then babbling from another world. And the one I'll end on is called My Father. So my father wrote it about his father, and I'm reading it. My father was 4 years in the war, and afterward, according to my mother, had nothing to say. In his sleep the next 4 years, she says he trembled in his sleep the next 4 years. My father was twice the father of sons miscarried, and afterwards said nothing. My mother keeps this silence also. 4 times my father was on strike, and according to my mother, had nothing to say. She says the company didn't understand, nor can her son, the meaning of an extra 15 cents an hour in 1956 to a man tending a glass furnace in August. I have always remembered him a tired man. I have respected him like a guest and expected nothing. It is April now. My life lies before me, enticing as the woman at my side. Now, in April, I want him to speak. I want to stand against the worn body of his pain. I want to try it on like a coat that does not fit.
Next we have Nicole Steinberg, born and raised in Queens, in New York. She edited a literary anthology about her hometown entitled Forgotten Borough, Writers Come to Terms with Queens. And I hope you've come to terms with Queens. Published in 2011. Nicole Steinberg founded New York's Earshot reading series in 2005 as a platform for emerging writers of various genres. And it's still underway, I suppose. She currently lives in Philadelphia and is employed as the Director of Communications for the City of Philadelphia Mural Arts Program. I hadn't realized the extent of the Mural Arts Program until speaking to her today, and it's a wonderful enterprise. Nicole Steinberg has a BA in Creative Writing from Brandeis and an MFA from the New School. In 2009, she published a collection entitled Birds of Tokyo. In 2013, she published a collection entitled Getting Lucky, which is described as a collection of sonnets culled from the editorial copy of Lucky, a newsstand publication for fashionistas. She was interviewed by the New York Times opinion pages on this book. In 2014, she published Undressing, and in 2014 also Clever Little Gang. Welcome, Nicole Steinberg.
Thank you so much to everyone who had a part in making tonight happen. It's such an honor and thrill to be here. And I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be a Pennsylvania poet. And if you had asked me 10 years ago if I would ever be a Pennsylvania poet, I would have said, what? No. So I'm dedicating this reading tonight to my mother, who passed away suddenly 7 years ago, and is part of the reason that I am a Pennsylvania poet today. The year after she died, there was a lot of upheaval in my life, and I, went through a fair number of things and decided to move to Philadelphia. I really love it in Philadelphia. I own a house there now, part of a great literary community. So it's great to be a Pennsylvania poet, and to be considered one, and to be honored tonight in the company of so much talent. So I'm going to start with a few poems from the book Getting Lucky. Lucky magazine doesn't exist anymore. Rest in peace, Lucky. But its editorial content lives on through these poems. And I wrote this book pretty much in the year after my mother passed away. I needed something to write about, and I could not write about what I was actually feeling. So I started writing these sonnets culled from this editorial copy and became obsessed with it, and ended up writing 60-something of them, and culled it into this petite collection of sonnets. So I will start with a few of those. This is called Catherine. They're all named after women who were featured in the magazine. The frothy prom queen look is huge this summer. Extra white teeth and 24-karat sheen is so posh punk, plastic luxe. We're crazy about a silk bib with pegged pants and cheeky gingham. A big ethnic cuff and fabulous top lovingly embroidered with forest animals lend an ineffable sexiness. Frequent napping does dewifying work, leaves you authentically pepperminty and super crisp. A judicious smattering of sequins is a most unexpected development on the utilitarian chic front. Zigzagging patterns on a suggestively curvy form lend heat. Whether you're from India or Delaware, suck up these tips and transform. Be a pea-sized pixie with a department store childhood of pearls and chandeliers. Tina. Your first BFF should exude mystery and hotness. Out and out glitzy and water repellent, with a private life that's enviably exciting. I want my best friend to feel very English or French. That would improve my life about 6 zillion%. Badass and dainty, the giant understatement of the party. We can futz around my apartment with cafe au laits and cigarettes, arty and artistic in the most artful way. A dramatic urban mushroom, I see strategically bare women on the street and telegraph obscene thought bubbles. I get kind of insanely obsessed with these tart, seductive models, nonstop embellished and clangy like fireworks in a museum. New York, at its worst, is an emotional minefield. No matter how you look at it, my mood ring is basic black. And this is called Nicole. Face it, you aren't Angelina in the supermarket or on a boat in Bora Bora, surrounded by flashbulbs and style mavens in Chanel. There's a wildly held stereotype that drama is entertaining, that being exposed is awesome. You pile on cashmere and floppy ribbons, rigid and tough with your murderous midriff and dark sartorial sensibilities, lozenges and a volcano in your medicine cabinet. It's almost impossible to not feel a bit inferior among a phalanx of Faye Dunaways in enameled epaulettes with unstoppable elan. You feel like a slacker whose cool factor got lost, always scrambling to exude that certain something, on the lookout for any attitude other than your own. How to Kill a Wolf. In dreams, I'm my own totem. I make myself laugh. My soundtrack is luminous and pure. The men are headless peacocks gathered round the chicken coop, and I love the cats so much I want to snip off their ears. I lose count of things that continue to grow when left alone. If I die, it'll be cozy in the passenger seat, but I won't die. Frenemy. I like to think an oversized floral print will make me a better person, but it would only confuse and destroy the others. Lady Bear, no one really gets to get the moon. Like all of us, the tides are faking it, drowning piles of embossed party invitations in dismal dishwater, seeking the ecstatic pinprick that leads to the most meaningful bloodletting of our lives. My jaw-drop pores exude an envious bouquet. I spy the monster snuffling beneath your chair, and I want it under mine. My stiletto is stuck in this blood spatter pattern, so they wind the crime scene tape around me like one boss anklet. This is a poem inspired by OkCupid. I'm sure some people in here are familiar with OkCupid. It's called You Should Message Me If. Everyone wants each other topless, or as close to it as possible. A world of whale sharks on 2 legs, sucking down debris. My true love only wants to go with me to the taqueria every night, where the world's love nestles inside a salty shell. I don't kiss just anyone. The mouth is an intimate place. It has seen so much comfort. Like me, you fear death and a mediocre lunch. You like to keep warm. The most private thing I'm willing to admit. My primary regret is that I won't be able to pull off the hottest fall 2045 trends. Discontinued. Michael heaves and hacks in the bathroom, a noisy victim of dodgy Chinese in Vienna and one too many full-fat lattes. I hear him call for me, pathetic mule, and I shuffle through the guidebook for the Austrian equivalent to 911. Sprechen Sie English? I'd ask the kind answering voice. I'd admit to her I still don't know how to navigate sudden endings. Even news of an old perfume's demise shakes me. I remember the pale pink glass bottle, how it reigned supreme upon the throne of my best friend's dresser next to dried daisies, a fragrant, expensive gift from her cow-licked, thin-lipped boyfriend, whose relentless, dopey love both embarrassed and thrilled me. I can't save anything that can be taken away, held hostage behind closed doors. I can't reach Michael in time, so I curl up and wait until the fevered one might well be me. I tell you, he is just as precious as every twinkling light in this city, hung to usher in a holiday I don't celebrate, a season for trinkets either cherished or forgotten, but always collecting dust. At the market, cream and gold ornaments dangle above, and heaps of powdered sugar cookies sit, bulging with jam. I stuff my bags with souvenirs and take it all home so I can keep it, so I can dote on shelves of stale crumbs forever. And this is the poem featured on the poster. It's called My Dark Semitic Wiles. I took my dark Semitic wiles on the road. The train was empty, and that was lovely. Everywhere an open space. En route to Berlin, I held the bathroom mirror and spoke to my mother. Foreign leaves of foreign trees, and the conductor's garbled nothings blurred above my head. She thinks I'm going to get myself killed, lost forever. I remember a straight-haired little girl at the kindergarten table with eyeglasses as petite as her pink Polly pocket. I crushed them in my fat hand, arranged the lozenge lenses next to the legs, purple plastic bird femurs. Like chicken, I picked it apart. My fellow passengers, the unwed Jewess rides among you. Come to tour your capital of tragedy. Love me out of guilt like an unborn sister, a mother's final scowl before death, the very nose on your face you'd hack off just to belong. And I'll just read one more. Thank you again. It's called The Most Evil Thing I Own. My mother was literate, sometimes to a fault. And when she died, deep in Saudagie, I looked everywhere for boxes of personal journals, diaries. I fear I will be more disappointing than ever in death. Too many earrings without their match, allergy pills hidden in every handbag, secret cuneiform in my bra's underwire that confesses I had evil thoughts about people I loved. Right now, I'm alive, and no one is accusing me of anything. It's quiet and sunny and springtime, streets slovenly with petals and pollen. Thank you.
Our next reader is Dawn Lonsinger. Dawn is a visiting assistant professor of English at Muhlenberg College. I should mention that usually we're focused on one end of the Commonwealth or the other. We sort of cover all ground now. We have Philadelphia representation, Pittsburgh representation, and you can be the middle. Dawn grew up outside of Philadelphia, attended Bucknell, attended Cornell University for an MFA, and earned a Ph.D. In literature and creative writing from the University of Utah. She received a Fulbright Fellowship to go to South Korea and has received 4 Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Prizes. She's published 2 chapbooks, The Linoleum Crop in 2007, The Nested Object in 2009, and has just published, or a couple of years ago, published Whelm. Did I pronounce that correctly? Thank you. W-H-E-L-M, through Lost Horse Press in 2013. We have copies of Whelm for sale here. Please welcome Dawn.
Thank you so much to everyone at the Center for the Book and at Penn State. It's such an honor to be here and to be in the company of Michelle and Peter and Nicole's poems, as well as all the poets who've been a part of the project up to this point. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and then I went away for 4 degrees and didn't really think I'd be back, honestly. And then Pennsylvania wanted me back. I'm in academia, which means you could get tossed anywhere in the universe. And I ended up back in Pennsylvania, which I'm very happy about. Okay. This first poem is a part of a series of poems, all with the title Taming. So this is actually Taming number 16. In a city, dawn piles limes and porn in windows, unfurls roses of cash in pockets and registers. The garden is gathered around us in cha-ching and boom. So much juice already squeezed from rinds by machines. At the ready, so many intricately sewn garments to make us shameless and or beautiful. Fish gathered by the netful from the terrible dark ocean, trucked invisibly indoors, their thin, translucent spines censored, and silvery skin laid out like lures before us on baptismal fonts of ice. Businessmen in sharp blue suits slide by in well-engineered cars. Water is dripping through countless full-bodied roasts in every burrow. And even at the earliest hour, breasts of chicken are being sleeved in an almost irresistible batter. The abundance is unfathomable, and so we walk casually through the unfathomable, go in and out of establishments in search of something, while unseen stars roll around pulsars in the black bonfire of space, and factories here on Earth clamor plastic around the consequences of some of our dreams, while traffic lights jewel the pigeon's wings and javelins of overhead light tunnel through that ampler republic of sunlight to break over our hairy heads and pierce us full of arrows that miraculously do not lead us to a field and do not kill us. Sundress. The girl felt like a swing attached to tiny straps that U-turned over her shoulders. She didn't have a waist, but she knew she had the makings of one. Her hip bones, small omens. Grape was her favorite flavor ice, and when she pressed the jagged plastic edge against her lip, it dripped across her chin and into the violets on her dress, staining the fabric like a bruise. When she smiled, her teeth were a calendar of plums, incomprehensible. Every day, the young girl looked up into the pornography of clouds and wished to be a new girl. She didn't know why the neighborhood boys leered at her, but she had a hunch that it had to do with the future. She looked away from the overture of eyes, practiced being the girl she would like to be, dragged the translucent flowers and gauzy white cloth with her through the grass in pursuit of crickets, her clavicle a compass. Her hair was a tangle of insurrection, her hands unfolded in front of her like they were each their own animal. There was her and the dress that held her, her and the dress that hid her. There was the wide world and this pretty semi-transparent cotton, among other things, between her nerves and the gnarly nest of growth. The hem divided her at the knees, bobbed in and out as if sewing her to sunlight, the whole yard fastened with lemon thread. I just decided to read this poem right before tonight in memoriam for Prince passing away. So it's not really about Prince at all. It's just a rain poem, so Purple Rain. Okay. And maybe the title says something too. So the title is Ruin is a Thing That Happens in the Past. Rain spreads like a negligee over everything. My longing is a forest, and your voice is all the birds that live there, are hushed in the rain. Let me learn the candor of falling, the open-endedness of roofs, how to knot my fingers with earth and let go, how to put down the unending letter. When I look out into the porcelain night, see all the fissures widening, beauty shattering in deep magenta alleyways. I long for the moxie of the torrential. The old men in doorways speak in a language we cannot know, of how to slice evenly down the belly of a fish. The children keep darting out into the lightning, tempting the gods to tackle them. The rain is making a case, that baptism, that flush, that the stars will never belly up, that luster is, of course, an antidote to our eyes, and we are no more purgatorial than the pools underneath it all, catching the seemingly endless runoff, dirty as all get out. When it stops, we go outside, electrified with silvery dampness, and stare down into the puddles. We see only the sanity of suggestion, the torn sleeve of time, evidence that we are not yet ghosts, all echo and ripple and swig. This next poem is for anybody who's ever had to write a cover letter and felt that to be a sort of crime or torture of some sort. It's called She Had No Cover Letter. It's just one word and then another, she told herself. Just line them up, let them mean you. Stick to concrete details and examples, scholarships, publications, syllabi, dust under showroom cars, awards, conferences, the piazza flooded, degrees, skills, teaching experience, memberships, lemon meringue, lemon rind, lemon juice, lemonade, sunlight spattering sidewalks, sinking into soil, draped over your head, which is drifting away on the wide raft of his mahogany chest. Damn you, lemon meringue, she thought, with your torched crests of froth, your bright bewilderment. Each day she began again. I am applying for. I graduated from. My scholarly interests include. But the words never felt like her words, were heavy as volts in a bank-ridden, tree-troubling world. She elbowed the words as she would elbow her elbows into suits. On a good day, she'd dishevel her hair a little, look in the mirror, declare, there is nothing I can't tailor. Come on, give me a lemon tree and watch me prune it. Sometimes her words would begin to move of their own volition across the page. This made her uncomfortable. She felt that they were up to something, had plastic document covers up their sleeves. Once, she spent all day imagining herself as a template. And that evening, she thought she had one, felt the fish in her eyes calm, was pleased with her sellable summary of her strengths, with its tidy perimeters and proficient lemonless gleam. She printed it out, went to bed, but when she woke, the cover letter was seeping sap as if from the eyes of a parking lot Virgin Mary. By lunchtime, it was just a pool of molasses on her desk. Nothing was clearly delineated. She strived to write lucid, skimmable sentences that you could look into and see her, but I am was so close to I am that she couldn't forget it. She was, it's true, distracted. She was all additional materials upon request. When she dies, no one will know what to say because her accomplishments will be indiscernible from her failures. And the wind, she knows, will sweep the interstate clean. She imagines her mother or lover or the embalmer who can't suture her mouth shut will get up to apologize for the absence of her body, will say, I'm sorry, her mouth was full of meteors, i.e. lemons. Thanks. This is the right crowd for this, university. You guys all feel the pain. And this is the final poem I'll read tonight, and I think the title is self-explanatory. Upon encountering a t-shirt that read, unicorns are lame, said no one ever, and disagreeing. In a world where flounder corrugate the bottom of the sea with their double-eyed sides, in a world where leopard slugs slide down a rope of mucus and their male sexual organs emerge from their heads to entwine and fan out into a translucent sperm-swapping flower, in a world where jellyfish blink in the blackness, the Teratopsis nutricula skirting indefinitely its biological immortality along the glassing edges of our vacations, in a world where extremophiles live in volcanoes, blind cave spiders carry egg sacs in their mouth parts until spiderlings hatch. Ducks sleep half awake. In a world where zombie fungus infects and controls the brains of ants, megabats swoop, neon mantis shrimp see colors we cannot fathom, with eyes mounted on stalks as they shatter oysters open. In a world where men snort the pulp of rhino horns and women undergo surgery to globe their breasts, and fetuses are growing birdish ribs in the human dark, and we eat chickens ground down and reconstituted into shapes and dusted with flavoring. What is a horse with a horn? Shall we say our imaginations are tiny as a flag planted into the head of a broken animal? Shall we say our magic comes up white though the light of the sun blinds us stupid? Shall we trade all feral fur for this thin thermostat? Shall we try to detain the claw and snarl of forests with such a princess hoax? Shall we pretend the horse was placid, offered its horsepower of its own accord? Unicorns are a tempering, a tampering, a double taming, a virtue, a curfew. You think unicorns are innocent magic, but they be teaching your daughter shit. Before the unicorns came all pink fog and fame into their bedrooms, those girls were in the woods, snorting like minotaurs, threads pulling every which way from their shorts. The unicorns say nothing, but your daughters hear them. Down on all fours, darling. Toss your comely mane, whinny in the wind. Temptress the treetops with your equine body. Be the prettiest passivity. See how the virgins drape their rarity over my rarity. Soak up all your blood when no one's watching. Turn your beastly bodies into blank pages. Open your eyes so wide that glitter spills from them. Everyone will love you. Everyone will be enchanted. What magic you will actually possess is unclear. You can't fly, darling. That's the Pegasus, smart horse. You can't eat the children. That's the goblin, smart dwarf. You can't drink the blood and gather high art into your velvet dens. That's the vampire, smart undead. What do unicorns even do? Besides emerge and disappear, besides fill the woods with a dull shimmer? If there must be unicorns, let them gore the guts of the oglers. Let them graffiti the trees with the grievances of the mythically domesticated. Let them aerate the playgrounds into chasms. Look at their horns like masts, like phalli, like arrows driven into the skulls of deer and natives. Let them not point to the sky's tedious alibi of ascension, but bleed from their third eyes. Let them dig in the dirt with their blood horns, their cartilage scorn, their tame me once, shame on you. Tame me twice, gut you through. And if and when they touch our sons and daughters with their horns, let our children's small chests bloom with spikes. Thank you so much.
Our final poet is Michelle Lynn. Michelle is a California native. Her Pennsylvania credentials come from a couple of years at the University of Pittsburgh, where she earned an MFA and taught poetry and composition. She's back now in California and works for API Legal Outreach, a social justice nonprofit serving low-income people of culture in the Greater Bay Area. She's published poems in Crab Orchard Review, in North American Review, in Asian American Literary Review, and other venues. Her book entitled A House Made of Water is forthcoming. Michelle Lynn can't be with us tonight, so we have a video.
I couldn't sing groan. I couldn't sing winter. I was only dull with rain. Years ago, I killed a lonely man, and after that, it was so hard to say I didn't want him. I wanted the sureness of stones. No, I didn't want him. Nobody sat at that table, and I didn't want to breathe. Sometimes, I didn't even want to sing. As thin as water and still, I lived. The sky folded right side down. My hands sewed themselves back to me. When I left, he took nothing. Like many, I hid in the womb. I braced myself from emerging. Anyone can climb down that ladder, the pole of me twisting. I left, or she left, or he is leaving now, gasping screen door. This is the floor. This is the ceiling. Walls hold hands and basements comb dust. No one grew up and no one died. He once gave me life, but on a name to wrap myself in. When he gave me what I didn't want, it was hard to say. Birth of Aphrodite. To wake, made of water. The early morning circles, spins dust into an ocean. Everything is edged in blue. To watch last night a film with your sister. To do what families do, The Little Mermaid, old push and pull, father, daughter, love. To be unable to sleep, pearled with grief, moving through rooms, quieting clocks of batteries. From the start, his favorite, absent from her singing shell, he is furious with the tease. To be 9 again, blinking into the eye of his camera. To touch his hand and tick-tock tick, to wake made of water. The early morning circling an ocean. Everything is blue. To be 9 and dancing his eyes away from your sisters. To open blushed mouth, to sing tick-tock tick, you wake made. You draw yourself a bath, watch the water drip. You make it so hot it could peel your skin. Oyster brimming at the lip. You wash your hair, wash your hair. Think of your sisters. Rise like a goddess from sea foam. You are the blue, you are the blood. You are made and made and made. My mother as Mystique from X-Men. The child first believes the body drawn blue can tide skies beyond pains, can sift into the moon and back. Change is feasible, is furious, is the many filaments of a self surfacing at a magnetic doodleboard, bending to a hopeful pen. The shape of a mother is anything before the child learns the tone of flesh, before the pen becomes roped in anchor, learns to stamp down stars, has the body blue broken into house, named from any moon to monster, first by some god in a helmet, then by the body herself. How quickly a bearing of breasts drawn by the two of my child hands is swept from the slate. How naked is my mother's apology as I emptied toy in hand and rushed from the door. How sudden is the knowing of shame, of learning this first part of us to cover when uncovered, what's kept closed behind doors, what humiliation. It could burn the whole house down. Never mind, she was first given to me bare. Never mind, I did not turn then from her bruised body, even if drawn in tears. No, how right is my making of blame, the hurt of each poem, hard metal core of my pen, molded by men, how marked is emancipation. With a mother beaten into any woman's body, imagine who her child could be. Each time I look, she could change. The year of the horse is dead, and so is the year of breaking and brokenness, this beach and you upon my back, wielding your heaviest sword. I rear back to a line of jet-haired women before me, unstabled, so never yours, on knocked knees named pin-up, pinned apart for discovery. The sides of sea you see breaching there is a dark opening endlessly on itself. Like so, I hooved my soul to stand on stones, and then I furled the dread tale in daylight, and the tale by next dawn. Bit down the bit you gave me, melted me to the point of weapon, drew the dagger down my own throat. And then I spit the jewel back to you, to where, yes, they will point to your own pale throat. Yes, first there was the bride unbridled in the mouth. But first I felt the clang of English, and then I bit down.
What an incredible evening. Thank you so much to our poet and our readers tonight. Thank you, Jake Oresick, for reading for your dad tonight. Join me in thanking all of our poets tonight. Thank you, Don Lonsinger, Nicole Steinberg, Michelle Lynn. Thank you to all of you. Please don't forget, we have our poets who are going to sign posters up here. We also have a book sale. Please stick around and enjoy more interaction with these poems and poets, and thank you again for coming tonight. Hope to see you all again soon.